Is this the end for two UFC fighters? We've gotten some big fight announcements in the last 24 hours, and we're going to be talking all about it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is MMA 365, the greatest UFC YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe, especially because Yuri Prohaska is still lost in the woods, looking for his own way, and I'm trying to help him, but he's not responding. And the only way that we can make sure Yuri Prohaska returns safely is if you hit that subscribe button. Thank you. So we need to talk about this. Brian Ortega is announced to be out again in his fight against Renato Moicano. That was supposed to happen on UFC 326, headlined by Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. And you can see here we have a tweet essentially saying that Brian Ortega was announced to be replaced by Tom Nolan, but Tom Nolan's manager said that's not the organization told me his plans were. But either way, the fact that Brian Ortega is out is a big deal because this was supposed to be Ortega's redemption arc. Ortega looked absolutely horrific in his last fight against Aljamain Sterling, and now that he's moving up to lightweight, this is supposed to be a little bit of a redemption arc for him where the weight cut could be less bad and he can show his skills in a division that's a better fit for him at this point in his career. But either he got injured or something came up, and now the fight is canceled. And the tentative announcement was Tom Nolan would be stepping in to replace him. He's a lanky Australian striker. However, his manager said that that's not what the organization told him as of one day ago. So I'd hesitate to call that confirmed, but it is rumored that Tom Nolan could be stepping up to fight against Renato Moicano. And you can see here, Tom Nolan, he's on a nice winning streak ever since joining the UFC. But this would definitely be a big step up in competition. He hasn't exactly faced the cream of the crop, and Moicano is a solid top 10, top 15-ish opponent. So this would definitely be a big leap for Tom Nolan. And there are other UFC lightweight prospects that I say deserve a shot at someone like Moicano, who's a fighter who is good, but has definitely shown to be beatable. But I do think that this would be a fun fight. However, I would hesitate to put this fight on the co-main event for a card that was already sort of on the weaker side, headlined by a BMF belt, not a true weight class belt. And to me, this makes the Joshua Van Manel Kopp call out for that for this March 7th card. I think that would be a great fit now that there is a void to be filled. And yeah, this is something that I'm disappointed for Brian Ortega, but I'm glad that there are guys stepping up. You have to leave the game before the game leaves you, and I fear that the game might be leaving Brian Ortega. I mean, he's in his late 30s. He's looked rough in his last few fights, and we don't know yet exactly why he did pull out of this bout, but if there is some sort of major injury, then it could be time for him to hang it up. He's a good personality. I hope he's involved in the sport. He has very good skills. He could open a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. But I'm afraid that we've seen Brian Ortega already fight for the last time, and we didn't even realize it. And speaking of leaving the game before the game leaves you, we had another fight announcement, that being Kyle Daukaus fighting Vicente Luque on UFC 327. This is that Miami card, and Vicente Luque, buddy, it's not looking good. Kyle Daukaus is on a nice run at middleweight, and Luque, he's a career welterweight who's now seemingly moving up a division, unless Daukaus is moving down, which would be strange, but I would assume that this means that Luque is moving up to 185 pounds, and fighting against someone who's on a good run like Daukaus, this is not looking good for Vicente Luque. I mean, he's at a size disadvantage. He's looked rough in his last fight. against Joel Alvarez, who was a career lightweight moving up. He looked completely uncompetitive. I mean, Luque's had a history of injuries. He sustained a brain bleed earlier in his career, which is absolutely gruesome. And yeah, signing up for this fight against someone who's on a tear right now in a higher division, this is something that I'm really worried about for Vicente Luque. Another fight announcement. This is for the fight card in Seattle in March, headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. But Navajo Sterling will be fighting Bruno Lopes. And to be honest, I find this underwhelming. I was hoping for a bigger name for Navajo Sterling, maybe someone at the end of the rankings. He's an undefeated prospect, and he has a lot of striking skill, kickboxing. He's undefeated, especially at the light heavyweight division. There aren't too many rising contenders outside of the rankings. Sterling is supposed to be that guy. So I was hoping for a step up, but that being said, for someone with a fair amount of hype, Navajo Sterling is yet to have any really big splash moments or absolute dominating highlight wins. So this could be one last chance for him to get that big moment before stepping up in the rankings. And one more fight to announce, this occurring outside of the UFC, which is why it's a big deal. That being Patchy Mix has signed a fight in Rizin, the Japanese organization, which implies that he's been released from the UFC. Sayonara, Mr. Patrick Patchy Mix. It's been real. If you're anything like me, when he first signed to the UFC, you send some text to your friends hyping him up because he's a Bellator champion. He had a lot of promise. He's pretty young. I think he's only 28. And he came to the UFC, was on a main card against Mario Bautista, and got completely outclassed. Looked like he didn't even know there was a fight going on. Looked like he had cinder blocks for feet. And then Mario Bautista had a nice little run after that. So you're thinking, okay, maybe this is Mario Bautista just being really good, better than we thought. And maybe Patchy Mix still has it in him. Then the UFC gives Patchy Mix a second chance against another UFC newcomer, Jakub Wiklau. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Someone fresh from the Polish regional scene. And they put that fight on the early prelims, and Patchy Mix loses a split decision. Oh my days. That was the last time we saw Patchy Mix fight, and it looks like, at least for the foreseeable future, it will be the last time we'll see him fight in the UFC. So, a very disappointing arc for Patchy Mix, but definitely not the end. He could certainly go on a run and get re-signed to the UFC, but this is the end for now for Patchy Mix, at least in the UFC. Fighters have been cut from the UFC before and went on a redemption tour in other promotions before coming back, so I wouldn't say it's completely out of the cards for Patchy Mix. I mean, he's young, he's flashed a lot of talent that simply wasn't shown in his most recent two fights, so hopefully he can level up his game even more and come back better than ever. But if this is indeed the end, then so long, Patchy Mix. Everyone comment, so long, Patchy Mix. We have another fight this weekend, and we have the privilege of getting to watch Alexander Volkanovski, maybe for the last time, so I'll be sure to savor it, and we have a lot of content planned over the next few days surrounding that card, so be sure to subscribe, especially because Yuri Prohaska is lost in the woods, and we need to get him out. So that concludes this video. Thank you for watching.